Today's episode is sponsored by Capital One Shopping. Capital One Shopping is the extension that automatically applies coupon codes for free while you shop. If you're tired of overpaying on Amazon, let Capital One Shopping search in the background for a better price. It only takes one click and is free for everyone, Capital One customer or not. To avoid paying full price, click the link in the video description to get Capital One Shopping for free. Now let's get down to basics. Alright, so first up in Chiles Rellenos, which I think that's how you pronounce it, is a very basic, very rustic salsa. I've got one small onion here that I'm going to chop in half and peel, 5 big beautiful Roma tomatoes, and 1 jalapeno, whose stem I'm going to remove. Now we want to get some char on these vegetables. You could do this under the broiler, but if you have a pizza oven capable of exceeding 900 degrees Fahrenheit, why not use that? I've got a nice cast iron griddle in here preheating, and I'm going to toss in my tomatoes, jalapenos, and onion, and give them a few minutes of loving by the fire, just until they're starting to blister and pop and get some nice dark char marks. This, as you can imagine, will translate to flavor. Once they're nice and charred, it's time to head on over to the stovetop where we're going to dump these into a large saucepan, along with just enough water to cover them about halfway, maybe 2 or 3 cups. Oop, almost forgot the garlic. I got 4 cloves of smashed garlic here that I'm going to scatter amongst the vegetables. Sprinkle about a teaspoon of Mexican oregano over top, cover it up, and bring it to a simmer. And keep it there for no more than 5-10 minutes. This is a very bright, fresh salsa, and we don't want to cook out all the sharp vegetal flavor. Give things a stab with a paring knife, see if you garner any information from that. We want things just soft enough to blend, because that's where we're headed next, to the jar of our favorite blender, where we're going to dump in all the vegetables and maybe about a cup's worth of the cooking water. Oh, I definitely did more than that. That's okay. And then, as you might imagine, we're going to top this up and blend it together into a relatively smooth salsa. You don't want tomato soup, you want some nice visible chunks and texture in there. So before it's completely done blending, make sure you season generously with kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper, give it one last blitz, and you're good to go. Make sure you taste for seasoning before putting it back in the pot from whence it came. Cover it up and set it aside while we contend with the star of our Chiles Rellenos show, the chiles. Specifically, a whole bunch of poblano chiles. These are pretty widely available, packed full of flavor, and for that reason, you definitely don't want to substitute them with green peppers. And just like with the vegetables, we have to start by charring them, but to a much greater extent. We want their exteriors to be almost completely black so that we can peel them off. This can be accomplished one of 2 ways. You can do it directly on your stovetop, and when I say directly, I do mean directly. Plop these guys right on the grate of your gas stovetop, rotating frequently and keeping a long stick nearby to silence your fire alarm, which will be constantly going off. Depending on the power of your stove, this should take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. You want to make sure that little to no green skin remains. If you don't want to smoke out your kitchen and freak out your neighbors, this is another great application of your pizza oven. You could try to do this on your gas grill, but it just doesn't get hot enough. You're going to end up with baked peppers rather than fire roasted ones, which, while plenty tasty, just won't work for this dish because you won't be able to peel off the skin. Once these guys are nicely blackened all over, it should only take about 3 to 5 minutes after flipping a couple times. We're ready for the old peel and stuff. And to make these guys easier to peel, we're going to pop them into a large bowl and let them steam in their own heat under cover of a plate. After letting them sit for about 15 minutes, their skins should jump right off. You'll notice that I'm wearing gloves, and that's because poblanos can vary wildly in heat. Some can be quite spicy, and you don't want to find out later on when you go to the bathroom. Once you got all your peppers peeled, like a regular pepper peeling Peter Piper, it's time to stuff these guys full of delicious things. Now you can use chorizo, you can use ground beef, but my favorite is Oaxaca cheese, a Mexican string cheese very similar to low moisture mozzarella, so if you can't find any, that's a fine substitute. Now, stuffing the peppers is definitely the trickiest and most tedious part of this recipe. You gotta either find an opening or make a small one with a paring knife and take out the core, veins, and seeds without completely destroying the pepper. Then once you got those out, you gotta stuff it full of cheese or your desired filling. This process is kind of like making pancakes. The first couple are going to suck, but you'll get in the rhythm and start putting out perfect flapjacks or peppers. If your peppers really fall apart, you can secure them with toothpicks, but it's a huge pain in the ass to take them out, and inevitably one of your dinner guests is going to get one caught in their tooth and you're going to be embarrassed. Once we got all these guys stuffed, it's time to batter and fry. And this batter is a pretty unique one. We're going to start by separating 6 eggs, yolks in a little bowl, whites in a big one. Tiny whisk those egg yolks together until they're smooth, and then with a much larger electric powered whisk, we're going to beat the egg whites to semi any stiff peaks. So when you pull the whisk out, a little peak stands up. Then very carefully and gently, we're going to add the egg yolks back to the whites, in what I'm sure is a very confusing process from their perspective, and gently fold them together, taking care not to knock out all the air that we just got in the egg whites. This should make a light, frothy kind of batter that we're going to coat our chilies with, and to help it stick, we're going to start with a coating of flour. Now remember when I said that removing the core and seeds from the peppers was the hardest part? Well, I was lying. This is the hardest part. Your pepper might have multiple openings or slits, and your goal here is to completely ensconce the pepper in the batter so that none of the filling leaks out during frying. This is a tedious and delicate process, and you might end up with some leaky peppers. But once you feel like you've got it reasonably sealed up, it's time to head over to the stovetop where we've got some oil heated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, where we're going to fry our peppers about 2 to 3 minutes per side, just until they've turned a lovely shade of golden brown. To help prevent the batter from splitting, you can very carefully baste the top of the pepper before flipping, which can sort of par-cook and solidify it so it doesn't explode when you turn it over. Once they're nice and golden brown, we're going to drain them on paper towels, and then you get a couple options for serving. You can either simmer them in the salsa for a few minutes, or my preferred method is to get the salsa piping hot, spoon some out onto a plate, plop the peppers over top those up with a little bit more salsa, and then you can optionally garnish with some crumbled cotija cheese, which if you can't find, feta is an acceptable substitute, and some chopped fresh cilantro, which if you're like me and you have the genetic markers that tell you the cilantro tastes like soap, you can use chopped parsley or maybe nothing at all. And there you have it, Chiles Rellenos, a spicy, saucy, cheesy, smoky, peppery delight, a favorite of Mexican, Texan, Tex-Mexican, and extremely hungover people. Poblano chilies are one of my all-time favorite flavors, and they play so beautifully with this light, fresh salsa and the rich, stretchy cheese. Speaking of which, before I devour this, let's get another stretch for the thumbnail. There it is. That's how you get the clicks. Thanks again to Capital One Shopping for sponsoring today's episode. With Capital One Shopping, one click is all it takes to snag exclusive savings from the stores you care about. As you browse online, you'll see a handy little pop-up if a better offer is found, including tax and shipping details. It's an easy way to save while you shop like you normally would, plus it's free for everyone to use. Get Capital One Shopping now for free using the link in the video description.